Good day, all. Today we are going to talk about one-step equations and how to solve them. Believe it or not, in one-step equations, you've been working on these kind of problems since you were in first and second grade. Do you remember when your teacher would give you worksheets with a little box plus 2 equals 5 and you had to fill in the blank box? Or your teacher might have given you blank plus 3 equals 7 and you had to fill in the blank. Well, today, when we believe it or not, this is called algebra, but in today's class, we are going to replace that block or that space with the variable. So we would write this equation as x plus 2 equals 5. So that's going to lead us into our lesson today. Now, with one-step equations, the goal of solving a one-step equation is to find the variable or find the value of the variable. Now, we call this isolating the variable. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the variable all by herself. Now, in order for us to do that, we need to use what are called inverse operations. And inverse operations are just operations that are the opposite of what's being done, okay? So the inverse operation actually undoes what the equation is doing. For example, the inverse operation for addition is subtraction. The inverse operation for subtraction is addition. And the inverse operation for multiplication is division. And finally, the inverse operation of division is multiplication. Okay, so let's begin by working out some problems. Okay, let's do the problem that we have above. We're going to do x plus 2 equals 5. Now, what I want you to remember when we are looking at these type of equations, that there are actually two sides to the equation. So I want you to imagine that there is a wall where the equal sign is, and you have a left side of the equation and a right side of the equation. I want you to always remember that whatever you do to one side of the equation, you must do that to the other side of the equation. I like to think of this as when you're riding or you're on a teeter-totter with your friend and you're teeter-tottering back and forth, and you have one of those friends that likes to jump off the teeter-totter when you're way up in the air, you come crashing down to the ground. Well, algebra is the same way. If you were to jump off one side of the teeter-totter or the equation and you don't do the same force on the other side of the equation, then you're going to crash down and make a mistake. So let me show you how to do this. Well, we have on the left side, our goal is to isolate x or get x by herself, but we have right now a positive 2 with her. So the inverse of addition is subtraction. So I want to subtract 2 from both sides. So when I subtract 2 from both sides, 2 from 2 is going to cancel out and give me 0. But we don't have to write 0. We just bring our x down. And now we have 5 minus 2, which is 3. Okay? Let's look at another problem. How about p minus 4 equals 12? Again, I want you to imagine that there is a wall here, and we have a left side of the equation and a right side of the equation. Now, this time, P is on the left side with a -4. The opposite or the inverse of -4 is adding 4, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So 4 minus 4 gives me 0. That means that P is by herself, and I'm going to do this. Now, one of the things that you'll probably have heard me say if you've seen some of my other videos is that I love algebra. And the reason I love algebra is because we can always check our answer. Let's go back to our first equation. Here, we are saying that x is equal to 3. So I can kind of take this 3 and I can place it back into my original equation. 3 plus 2 equals 5. And that is what the original equation said, so I know I got my answer right. I can do that here as well. I'm saying that P is equal to 16, so I can place 16 where P is. 16 minus 4 is equal to 12, and so that's what I got, so I got it right. Now, we can do one-step equations with any kind of number that we want. For example, let's say I want to use decimals. So I'm going to take y minus 1.5 equals 2.7. Again, my goal is to get y by herself. So let's think we can imagine our wall. And you don't have to draw that line. I'm just trying to show you that there is a left and a right side. Again, my y is with a -1.5 or a subtraction of 1.5. So I'm going to add 1.5 to both sides. And again, the rules of decimals still apply. So 1.5 minus 1.5 give me 0. And I can add these up. And that's going to give me 4.2. So y equals 4.2. I can check my work. 4.2 minus 1.5 equals 2.7. So I got it right. Okay? I know you guys hate fractions, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do some with fractions real quick. Same thing. T minus 1/2 equals 3/4. Okay? Again, it's just like the problems that we've done with whole numbers. I'm looking at two sides of my equation. On this side of my equation, t is being subtracted, 1/2 is being subtracted from t. So the opposite of a -1/2 is going to give me +1/2. And because I added 1/2 to the other side, I'm going to add it to the right side. So 1/2 minus 1/2 gives me 0. I have t equals. Now, I cannot add fractions that do not have like denominators. So I need to find my common denominator. In this case, it happens to be 4. 3/4. I multiply 2 by 2 to get 4. I need to multiply my numerator by 2, and I get 2/4. And because I'm adding 2/4 plus 3/4 gives me 5/4. Okay? So there is my answer. Now, do I have to have my variable on the left side? No, I don't. I can also put my variable on the right side. So let's do 17 equals y minus 15. Okay? Again, don't forget we have a left and a right side. Again, I'm subtracting 15 from my y. The inverse of subtraction is addition. So I'm adding 15 to both sides. This cancels out. And so I have y equals, well, 15 and 17 give me 32. If you want to check your work, 32 minus 15 equals 17. Oops. Equals 17. And so I got it right. Okay? So let's look at some word problems with one-step equations. Chloe has some apples. If she adds 5 apples to her pile, she will have 12 apples. How many apples does Chloe have? Now, in this case, they're not telling us a variable, so we're going to come up with our own variable. So whenever I solve one-step equations or any type of equation that is a word problem, and I choose my variable, I will tell people what it means. In this case, I'm going to choose A, and A equals the number of apples Chloe has. Okay, so it's the number of apples that Chloe has. So now I'm going to write my equation. So Chloe has some apples. So she started off with some apples. She's going to add 5 apples to what she already has to her pile, and she will have 12 apples after that. Okay, now I've written my equation. So Chloe has some apples. She adds 5 to it. And when she adds 5 to it, she ends up with 12 apples. So now I have my equation. So now I need to solve it. The inverse of positive 5 is negative 5. So I now have A equals 7. So Chloe started off with 7 apples. So Chloe started off with 7 apples. Okay, let's look at a second one. Amelia has some money. After spending $90 on a pair of jeans, she will have $45. How much money did Amelia have before she bought her jeans? At this point, go ahead and pause and see if you can solve this without my help. Okay, so I'm going to use D for dollars. Oops, I can't spell dollars. So D is the number of dollars that Amelia starts off with. Okay, so this time Amelia is spending $90. So if I spend $90, operation for spending would be I'm giving away money, which means it's going to be negative. So Amelia has some dollars. She's going to spend $90. After she spends $90, she will have $45 left over. How much money did she have before she bought her jeans? Again, we have 90 being subtracted from D. So the opposite of subtraction is addition. So I'm going to add $90 to both sides of my equation. 90 from 90 is going to cancel that out. So D equals $135. So Amelia started off with, I can't write today. She started off with $135. And if you noticed, in both of my word problems, I actually wrote my answer out so that I could answer the question that is being asked. I thank you very much for watching my video and have an amazing day. Take care.